Well, welcome to the show, Chrissy. We're here in Toronto. We just had some lattes. We got our toques on. We're ready to go all in on your story. I know this week we've talked about it a little bit, and I thought it was super interesting to share with the listeners. So maybe let's start out as how, like right now, your background is you are the owner, one of the co-owners of Nova 3 Labs, a supplement company for those people who do not know, nutrition and things like that. Let's go back to the start of how you found yourself in this world of fitness, nutrition, and being an entrepreneur and a business owner.
Yeah, so back in college, I was a college cheerleader. And so I kind of always has been into fitness. So before that, I did gymnastics. I played 12 years of soccer. I did softball, dance. I mean, I've done it all. Never played hockey, obviously. Sorry for you Canadians out there, but I'm always down to learn. So after college, I decided to try CrossFit. You know, people would always say like, oh, you got to try CrossFit, you're going to love it. And I also don't like when people tell me what to do. So I'm always like, you know what, I'm probably not going to do that. And then I ended up going to my first class with my dad. And I mean, the second I walked into the gym, just like how competitive it was, the camaraderie, I just loved it. And so I signed up after my first class. And I mean, as a college kid, like $120 a month was expensive. But I just knew that I wanted to do it. So actually, fast forward. So I started in 2012, got into business in 2015. So fast forward 3 years later, 3 different CrossFit gyms. I always moved to a more competitive CrossFit gym. And so I'm competing and someone was like, hey man, like you should hire a nutritionist, right? Because I ended up cutting for an Olympic weightlifting meet by just starving myself, obviously. I was like, I think I'll just stop eating and not drinking a lot of water. I made weight. It wasn't a good idea. I had no energy. I crashed. So I hired a nutritionist, and then he said, hey, you got to take these products. So it was this product from this really small company up in Canada. I'm like, okay, whatever. And so I take the products, and I'm like, man, I feel so much better. And so it was 2 owners at the time, and they both approached me, and they're like, hey, so we want you to do our social media marketing part-time. And at this point in my life, I'm a pharmaceutical rep in Los Angeles, and I was working for a company that sold, it was like EEGs, and we sold scripts for like epileptic patients, and we also did sleep studies. So it was more like we were trying to move away from this idea of just giving someone a pharmaceutical answer and trying to like educate the doctor or the consumer on why we should find the root of the problem first before we try to like mask it with some drugs, you know? So I was kind of already in the know of like just, I guess, pharmaceutical world. So they reached out to me and they were like, hey, we like you. We like your vibe. We like your business background. We want you to run social media part-time. And thought about it. And I had always known that I wanted to get into my own thing, but I never saw an avenue for that, right? And so I said, you know what? Like, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this all the way. So we're on a Skype call, me and these 2 guys. One's 10 years older than me. One's like 20 years older than me. I am 24 years old, like have no previous experience. And I'm telling them the story. And I'm like, look, I love the story. I'm like, when the Vikings went into battle, they would burn their own ship. And they would burn their own ship not only to showcase to their competitors that like, look, we're not going home in anyone else's boat but yours, but also to like pump their team up and say, look, we have no other way to go home but in their boat. So like, you're going to die.
Yeah.
And I told them, I said, I'm a burn the boat kind of person.
Hashtag all in.
Hashtag all in. I'm an all in kind of person. Like, you want my blood, sweat, and tears, and I have to have an ownership. And so I asked for 5%, and they agreed, and we signed the papers. And I had just gotten back from a trip to Ireland, which is a separate story. And I put my 2 weeks in, and I was an entrepreneur. And I remember sitting down and like waking up to no alarm and just being like, what do I do now? You know what I mean? Like, someone's like, you're going to run a business, and it's like, cool.
But how?
No, but like how? Yeah. And so started that at 24 in 2015 and just been figuring it out ever since.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's very awesome. And now you own majority share.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
So I bought I bought the second owner out. So now it's just me and Mike Kesley, and we work really well together. Like I think the biggest thing with owning a business with someone is that you trust them fully. And man, when there's money involved, it's just trust is such a trust and attention are currencies now.
Yeah.
Right? You go through a world and you don't trust anyone, and no one ever gets your full attention. You're like talking to people but swiping and texting at the same time.
Yeah.
And it's such a sad world we live in. But when you want to go into business with someone, trust and attention are two things that you need to have as like a foundation. If you're going to build a house, why are you going to build it on top of a shitty foundation?
Right. Was Mike the one that you hired originally to be your nutrition coach?
No, it was the other guy.
It was the other guy.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. But you existently had that relationship probably where you trusted him because from his company you were already getting this advice and things like that you were putting into effect, and you saw the benefits. So you trusted 100% in the company, the owner, and the products.
When I met him, I knew that he was a no BS kind of guy. And so just meeting him and talking to him and like seeing how he reacted and like how he was in the world, I was like, you know what? I trust him, right? And I think that I'm pretty good at reading people. I don't know if you'd say you're good at reading people.
I think that's one of the main things in business, especially, we'll get into it about your psychology background, but that plays a lot in marketing and business as well. Yes.
Yeah. So I kind of met him and I kind of just knew that I was going to trust him.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so now you're running this business, and you also have your master's in sports psychology.
Yes.
Yes. So how did you get led down that path while you're also managing being an entrepreneur? And when do you find time to sleep?
Oh my gosh. I'm like a bad sleeper. If it was my job, I would have been fired a long time ago. And I'm saying this like right now. I'm like, man, Natalie, I'm so tired. Like, okay.
We have not been sleeping well.
We have not been sleeping well, but we've been having so much fun in Toronto.
That is true.
So 2 years ago, I'm competing in CrossFit. I was a college cheerleader. We would compete. So we'd go to Florida Nationals, UCA, USA, and tumbling was always very mental for me. And this idea that I should believe in myself was never there, right? I was raised with negative reinforcement. Like, you're not good enough, right? Just try harder and you might be there. Except for this level of being good enough, I never achieved in my...
It just keeps moving. It's like a moving target.
Yeah, in my coach's eyes or whatever the adult that I looked up to at that time, right?
Yeah.
So constantly trying to do things for approval in a situation where I never was going to gain approval. So then in college, same thing happened with my coach at the time, where I just like could never do anything right. And so going into CrossFit and trying to be competitive with that, it wasn't that I was dealing with that same situation, but it was that the voice in my head did not believe in me. I didn't believe in me, right? And so it wasn't like, you're going to do great. It was like, dude, you're going to fail. You're going to fall on your face.
It's only a matter of time.
It's only a matter of time. Yeah. So I kind of went down this self-exploration path of like, why is this our option? Like, why is this our only answer? Why, when I look up how to change my mindset, it just says think positive. And I'm like, that's so stupid. I'm so actionable. So I'm like, what kind of actionable plan is this? Is there like a 4-step process on how to fix this?
Give me a list.
Give me a list. Give me some actionable items, people. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to go back to grad school. So essentially, I would wake up super early in the morning, do all my homework, go to work like during lunch, right? Because I worked from home. I run my own schedule, but I would work out in the lunchtime, go back home, finish work, and then like kind of like really late at night is when I would be writing my like papers, because a master's in psychology is just writing papers. So it was a lot of work, right? But there was no option where I wasn't going to get it done.
Yeah, right.
So
yeah, that's super cool. And now you work with athletes, you consult with athletes, and you talk to them about some stuff with their mindset and their stuff. So what would be some of the actionable steps that you found that helped you to overcome some of these things that you were thinking that then kind of led you down the path of being like, I need to share this with other people?
Yeah, so I wrote my thesis on the theory of cognitive reframing or restructuring. And it's just the idea of like changing your thought process. Like, how do I change a thought process, right? Like restructuring your cognitive space. So I wanted to come up with this like 4-step process, right? Or this step process. And I actually, in the middle of grad school, while running the company and writing a thesis, I created a journal.
Yep.
And so it was a journal, and it's called Piece Together Your Mental Game. And it's a journal that's based on cognitive framing, but it's putting it in actionable items. Like, so it focuses on gratitude, it focuses on visualization, but also it's like boom, 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 boom. Here's what you do, right? So you have a negative thought. Yeah. Okay, cool. What's the utility of that negative thought? What was the purpose of that negative thought? So like, I have 8 by 800 meter runs on the true form. Okay. Yeah. I'm 5'3", right? Like, I'm not an aerobic athlete. So I'm like, I'm already like, oh God, I'm going to fall off pace. Right. So I think that thought like, oh, I'm not going to finish this. And then, so why did I utilize that thought? Why utilize that thought? So that I would slow down, so that I would allow myself, that out. Yeah. What was the truth of it? Well, the truth of it was that I did fall off my pace, but I also still finished the runs. So, what was the purpose of the thought, right? What was the purpose of my negative thought? To slow down, which I already said that. And then, like, how do I reframe it? So in that instance, instead of thinking, man, I suck at running, like, I'm going to fall off pace. The thought process is, I may not be the best at running, but I'm still going to give it my full effort.
Yeah, and I might get better.
Yeah. Because the thing is, in life, things are in a macro perspective, and everyone thinks in a micro perspective. They think, I did not do good today. I failed a snatch today. Okay, yeah, you failed a snatch today, but like,
did it increase? Like, or
what did you learn from that? Did you hit an awesome high pull? How high did you get it? Like, there's so many things to think about in this situation that if we allow ourselves to absorb it in a negative way, that's the way that we're going to focus on it.
Right.
I allowed myself to be broken by it. It was like I went through these hard times, and I allowed myself to be like rebuilt from the fire. Right. And with entrepreneurship and owning your own company, oh my gosh, it's like making a diamond, right? Yeah. You know what I mean? But you go through some tough times, and it's like we were talking about this earlier, how these people that own these companies it's almost like they walk around and they just showcase the most positive aspects, and no one talks about how hard it is, how lonely it is, how mentally exhausting it is, how at the end of the day, you're laying there having a team meeting with yourself in your head, like, oh my God, who gave me all this responsibility? Like sometimes I'm like, oh my God, like I created this monster. I created this. Like, there's no one else to cry to. I created this. Like, I wanted it. I made it this big. I want to constantly grow it. I wanted to do all these things. But then at the end of the day, it's like, yes, but all of these things are just sitting on my chest. Like, the amount of uncertainty, the amount of pressure, the amount of people that rely on me, the amount of people that rely on me for income. And it's like, sometimes I'm like, what the hell did I get myself into? Right? Like, I used to hate working a job. I used to hate being an employee. But now I look and I'm like, sometimes that stability is so safe. And I do miss that. I would never go back to it. Let's hope not. But I think I have a more respect for people sometimes, where I used to think it was kind of very much my way or the highway.
Yeah.
In my young mind, but I'm still young, but like in my young mind, I was very much like, I know it all. I'm the smartest. I'm the best. And I can say that because I literally did think that. And obviously I learned the hard way. I fell on my face horribly, multiple times, literally, metaphorically. And what it taught me was that it's not cool to say, oh, I'm the best. I have the best, to walk in and be egotistical. What's even cooler is being like, you know what? I don't know. But I'll do anything it takes to figure it out.
Yeah. Oh, that's huge.
Yeah.
There's so many experts like in business. Well,
even I was going to say, even experts. Yeah. It makes me want to.
By the way, for those audio only, we're putting experts in quotations.
Yeah. Even those people that are like, I'm an expert in this. To be honest, like, I don't want to ever be an expert in anything, because that means I stopped learning.
Exactly. Yeah. Never stop learning. Like, I think that's so true. And even if you are like achieving all this success, like even if you're like the Tony Robbins of this, like you have like multi-million dollars, you have like a great family life, you've achieved work-life balance, there's always someone who's doing something a little bit differently that you can learn from. Like, everyone is so different that I think there's no way to stop learning. And like, the only way to like even grow the human race in general is to never stop learning. Like, the only way we've ever grown humanity is like to keep learning and then sharing our learning with other people, and even keep taking it from other people and like, oh, like, okay, that guy is approaching like this way, so is my method really best, or is like my method works only for these type of people, or this. And yeah, so it's definitely, I would say even people who aren't entrepreneurs and like they're just like in their everyday jobs, like figure out ways that you can like innovate like your own learning.
So like those people that, you know, entrepreneurship is not for everyone.
Yeah.
We're not saying
that's
to
the
go
thing,
quit your job and be an entrepreneur. If you work in a job
that's not for everybody.
Yes, it's don't do it. I mean,
stay away.
But if you work in a job and you love it and you feel safe and you have a family and it all makes sense, that's so great for you. What I talk to a lot of clients about is if that's not fulfilling your soul, which is what I left for, because these jobs weren't fulfilling my soul. I didn't feel like I had a purpose on this earth, and I needed to figure out, how do I feel purpose? Now, after going through this, after being dragged through the fire, the dirt, the knives, the pain, I realized that you don't have to always be an extremist, which I'm working on that. But you can figure out something else that fulfills your soul, right? Like, I take dance classes. I volunteer at the animal shelter. I will mentor young females in the city, right? Like, those things make me feel a purpose on this earth. And so what I learned through all of this is that I love to give back. And if I can't necessarily do that in a job where I have to be like in business mindset, like cutthroat business mindset majority of the time, that I have to find another outlet for that. Because if I feel like,
or at least the purpose of the business is to help people or something. Like, the
purpose of the business is to help people, right? Like, that's our whole goal. But it doesn't come. But
there's obviously the business side of things where you have to like.
Me saying, well, I'm not going to look at my finances because I want to help people isn't going to solve that.
No,
you know what I mean?
you can't. You can't help people until you help yourself, right? Like, you have to grow this big business to be able to affect more lives.
There's this old story about how you have two wolves inside of you. Have you ever heard of it? So it's like there's the fear wolf, and then there's what's the other wolf?
Optimistic wolf. Like, it
was like fear wolf and optimistic wolf, and basically the young boy was asking his grandpa, well, like, how do you know which one takes over? And he says, whichever one you feed, right? And so, but for me, it's very different. For like, my wolves are like cutthroat businesswoman, and then like loving and nurturing. And the thing is, if I don't balance that, like, I'll see it in my personal relationships where I will just be so cutthroat and like, you know,
savage.
Savage. I'm just savage, where I'll forget to talk to my friends. I'll forget to call them back because I'm so in like problem solving mode that I'm just like, I can't give you any more time. Right. But it's so good to have those people in your life that pull you out of that give you that work-life balance, that are like, you should probably chill, have fun.
Maybe we're gonna just like take a little break.
Take a break.
Put your phone down. 10 minutes, that's all I ask. Oh yeah, it's so true. And like, again, back to like saying entrepreneurship isn't for everyone. Like, entrepreneurship will chew people out, and like, it'll chew them and spit them out. And this is the thing, I find a lot of people, they get into entrepreneurship because they're passionate about an idea or a business, and then they go into entrepreneurship and they start it, and then they get chewed and spit out, and then they think that it's like that they're not good enough and their worth, and it's like they didn't work hard enough for this. And it's like, no, like, literally it takes a specific type of person, and maybe you didn't fit in. It's like, I'm never going to be a Olympic gymnast. 1, I'm like past the age. 2, I'm 5'7". Like, that's just, I'm not built that way. And it's the same thing. Like, you can learn things, obviously keep learning things. It's like, you're not like at a physical disadvantage necessarily. But sometimes that's just not the way you think or you build. And like, if you listen to like some of Gary Vee's things, people are very like on the fence about him. But he says, like, he goes and he's like, I was built to like sell. He was like, I was hustling people at school. And I know we talked about how we were doing this. And it's like, okay, well then you probably know that that's something you're trying to do. Versus if you're an entrepreneur and you never try to sell something in your life, and all of a sudden you're like, well, I like running a gym, or I like building cakes, and now you have to like sell that and you've never done it. It's like, it's just going to take up so much more of your time and mental energy trying to do it than like hiring someone else and focusing on what you like to do. And then people who like, they do that and they try to do it themselves and then they don't make it. They just think that they're not good enough at being a gym owner or this. And it's like, no, you could have been an amazing gym owner, but you try to focus on these little parts that like they're just not you. There's so many like different sides of things, I think.
I think everyone has their strengths in this world.
Right.
And you can have a great idea and have zero execution, right? Find someone that's great at executing. Right. And I know at the end you were going to ask me this question, so I don't want to answer it. But you want me to just answer it right now?
Yeah, go for it.
So you said, like, what was the biggest thing you learned in the last year of your life? The biggest thing I've learned, I'm 28, turning 29 this year. Oh, God. God, did I think I'd be at a different place when I'm 30? We'll talk about that later. No, but the biggest thing I learned this past year was that asking for help is not weakness.
No.
And look, I have a psychology background. I took up to 300 level units of psych in undergrad, but then didn't minor in it because they were like, you have too many units and you need to graduate. And I was like, whatever.
Yeah.
You know, I was like, I'm just trying to like get all the knowledge I can. They're like, you need to graduate. But I'm being an oxymoron and I'm being a hypocrite because I tell people the greatest advice that can change their life, and I can't apply it to myself because I'm so hard on myself. Oh my gosh, my friends are always like, dude, give yourself a break. And it's like, no, you don't get a break. Work harder, be better, always be better.
But other people, you're like,
but other people, I'm like,
dude, take a break.
Give yourself a hug. You're amazing. You're doing great. Come in for a hug. So
yourself, you're like,
yeah. The biggest thing that I learned is that asking for help and including others is not a sign of weakness.
No.
And for the first time, it was almost like, imagine, okay, I'm living under this rock, right? And I kind of just like peek my head out and I'm like, hey guys, I'm not really doing well. And everyone was like, oh my God, okay, let's talk about it. And I was like,
wait, what?
Wow. I was like, wow, this was a great response. Everyone should do this, right? But it took me going into this like level of so much vulnerability and uncertainty that I hate because I'm a type A control freak. But I did it and I was like, oh my gosh, this felt so good. It felt so good to feel loved and support by others because I have been that I had been that for myself my entire life.
Yeah.
So kind of relying on others and including others is the biggest thing that I learned in the last year, is that ask for help. And if you don't ask for help, people don't read minds ever.
Oh, it's true. And I know I'm like, why can't you read my mind? Like, to people. And it's like, wait, like, no. Like, that's not how it works.
Yeah.
Like, you have to, like, ask exactly for what you want. Yeah. And I know we were talking, like, a little bit about our background and stuff like that. And I know, like, I came from, like, a super, like, loving background. But, like, I always was like, but I'm not going to open up emotionally. Even, like, you know, like, my mom is, like, she's Venezuelan. She's, like, super loving and open. And I remember throughout my whole teenage years, I'm like, I'm not going to tell her anything about anything because I just... like was like, no, like I'm like stoic, I'm just gonna be like not talk to anybody, like it's like weakness to show this. And I don't know, it's kind of funny how I built that up in my own mind
because like where did you learn that?
Because she didn't teach me that at all. Like, you know what I mean? But it's just like, I think sometimes like that's just like how people are built some ways, like that's just how I was built. I was like, no, like I do everything myself, I learn things the hard way. That's just how it goes, and that's how I want it to go. But then as you realize, like especially as I've gotten older, and it's like funny because like I just like hang out with my parents more and I do more things, and I'm like, wow, like opening up to other people and like getting this support is like, that's only going to push me further. Like I used to think that like dating or seeing other people would like hold me back in business and life. But then I'm like, wait a second, like this person is like supporting me and wants me to do well in business and life. And I'm like, and they're helping me find that balance where like when I'm working on my business and life, I'm actually working harder at it versus just like 24/7, like, you know? And so it's like, it's just so interesting that it's like, but again, I have to learn things the hard way. So I'm going to go 25 years of my life without that first.
I know. Same with me. Like with dating, I'm like, no distractions.
Yeah.
No distractions. No. I don't want your distraction. And then I'm like, you're being a distraction. Please leave. Please exit the vehicle. I do not have time for this. Nor do I want to like allocate time.
This is your stop.
The problem is that it's not that I don't have time for it, right? It's that I worry that if I gave it time, what if it took away from my business? What if it took away from the world, the person that I could be, the potential of who I could be, right? When it's like, that's not what it is.
No.
It's like, wow, this person supports you and they want the best for you. And I'm like, healthy skeptic. Yeah. I don't trust it.
Word of the weekend, healthy skeptic.
Word of the weekend is healthy skeptic. I'm like, these Canadians are too nice.
Healthy skeptic.
Healthy skeptic. I don't trust any of you guys. No. In America, we like to push each other around and be really mean. And I'm like,
see that car over there? Let me just push you in front.
Yeah. I almost died, guys, in Canada. Ooh. Drove on the tram tracks. Didn't really understand what was going on. 4 green lights. I just took a wide turn, and there's a tram coming at me, and I was like, does it move? Do I move? I pulled a hard left, and yeah. Anyways, so Americans.
Yes. Oh yeah, but it's interesting because I felt like I was like, no, I'm like antisocial. I'm like, I don't need to talk to anybody. I don't need to do anything, like whatever. And it's just interesting because I found like I get my energy like in introversion. Like I need like my time alone.
Yep.
That's where I get my energy. If I go out and I'm like partying or like, I don't know, like after a competition, for example, like a weekend competition, you're not only are you like sympathetic because you're like competing the whole weekend, but you're also around all these people nonstop, like in an athlete area or this, and like you're turned on. You're never resting mentally either. You're seeing all these people you haven't seen in a while. Man, I crash hard after that. And so I was like, I need like that time alone, that space alone, where I just go to my room, which is interesting when you hear Matt Fraser at the games. He just like goes back to his hotel room and has a nap.
That totally makes sense.
Right? But then at the same time, I'm like, wait a second, like there also is the benefit of like, because I thought that's how I grow when I'm thinking in my own zone. But I'm like, wait, there could be a balance because like the world is relationships and social. And I'm like, if I'm excluding that, how, when I'm building out my business and need relationships and social, am I going to learn about that without, being social and building relationships?
Well, like, even think about if you and I went into this scenario of like, we both had an ego and we both wanted to be the smartest person in the room.
Oh, yeah.
We would have never talked about everything that we talked about, like the amount that we like opened up, and like, it wasn't even like a forced situation where we're like, let's talk about our childhood now. You know what I mean? It was just like, dude, I did that. You did that. Like, oh my God, like, this is so cool.
Like sharing.
Yes. Yeah. And it's more like, oh my God, we should collaborate. Like that shit excites me.
Yeah.
Like collaboration, like introducing people, helping people, like making people or helping them like want to achieve their dreams. Like that excites me. Like, so for you, like for me, when I go to events, my extroversion builds and builds and builds and builds and builds. So like the more extroverted I am, like it's so funny. One of our nutritionists, Kylie, was like, dude, when you get overwhelmed, you go harder. She's like, I pull back and we can't hang out. So like at Wadapalooza, I was just talking faster and I was like more focused. And it was like I was in like on like 600 milligrams of caffeine, but I wasn't. I was just like on pure cortisol the entire time because I was working in a booth from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Constantly talking to people. Everyone I could talk to. Everyone I could hug. Everyone I could reach out to, right? And yeah, I definitely crashed, but I crash in a different way. Or like I ride that high for a long time.
Yeah. Oh, which means we crash harder.
Oh yeah, I crashed hard.
It's like, let me just sleep for a week.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel you on that. Yeah, like I'm like, People are like, dude, you're not introverted. Like you just talk and talk and talk.
And they're like, you're talking so fast.
Yeah, and I'm like, just wait till I get home by myself. And I'm like, why have I done this?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's so true. It's interesting, and like everyone's different, right? Like there's extroverted people who they don't get to that point where they're just like building. And then there's introverted people who like, they need their time. Like I feel like people label themselves like, no, I'm introverted. Like I protect this, and extroverted, and then they protect that label and they build out like these things. And the more I've learned about myself, because I know when I first started working with you, Anova, you asked me what like my personality.
Oh, I had you do that personality test.
Yeah. But then I was telling you also about like the Myers-Briggs. I was like, oh, like you've done this one, and then we were talking about that, and I was like, I started originally the first time I ever took the Myers-Briggs, I was an INTJ.
Yep.
And then the most recent times I've taken it, I was an ENTJ, and I was like, interesting, as I've become like more open to relationships and social, that sometimes I test on the extroverted scale, and it's like if I'm comfortable and I'm like following what I want to be doing, then I'm going to be extroverted, and then like I also still need that space and energy. So I think sometimes people label themselves like, I am only this, and then they never learn about like that there's a scale, if that makes sense.
Well, it's the great thing with labels is like if we label ourselves with anything, then we're going to believe it, right?
Yeah.
If you
confirmation bias.
But if you tell a kid their whole life, right, all the way through elementary school that they're dumb, right? They're going to go through life thinking that they're dumb.
And they need something else.
So we have this school system in America. I can't tell you about Canada. And we base everything off standardized tests.
Right.
And
we
then
have a little bit less, but we do have some.
Well, and then we say, like, you're not average. You are not smart. You do not do well on this average standardized test. Therefore, you are not smart, right? And
it's only testing a few things.
But also, there's just so many other things that come into play, right? We're never teaching, like, EQ and IQ. We're never teaching emotional intelligence. And it's like, that is what gets us far in this world.
Yeah.
And we're only teaching, you know, how to grow our IQ. But there's so many people out there that can be so smart and they can't have a conversation.
I've worked with people who are like what is it, Mensa? Like the certified geniuses. Like they have to do like some they have a certain level of IQ.
Yeah.
You get like this pin. Yeah, and
You
like
get a pin, that's all?
yeah, I think so.
I mean, man, like, can I get like a pen at least? Like, I get a pin?
Yeah, what are you
going to walk around with it?
People?
Yeah, like,
honestly, sometimes that's the way they are. Like, I think that they just poke people. They don't have conversations. Like, it's just hard. Like, it's really hard. And like, you're in a one-on-one conversation with them, and it's like, how do you communicate? And it's like also them in a job. It's like, how do you get this knowledge out of them? Because it's hard to have that communication relationship with them. So it's like those people could be the smartest people on earth, but they're never going to run a business. They're never going to, you know, maybe move up into like this high position in work because they're just going to be used as like a kind of like a tool. Because
almost like a
they
computer.
Haven't built that EQ. Yeah, right.
Yep.
Exactly. So there's just so many other ways that people can be tested. And I think, like you said, like back to the childhood, like if people have been testing that way forever, they're going to believe it and they're never going to be like, wait a second, like, what if I like work hard at learning this or do this, or there's just other things. Like
if there's one skill that if there's one thing that I could give to the entire world, just like sprinkle a little bit over the whole world, it would be self-confidence. Because I'm very confident now, right? But because I've been dragged through the MF and fire, right? Like
nice.
like I learned the hard way that, look, if you're not confident in yourself, ain't nobody going to give you that skill, right?
No, and people might take advantage of you, too.
Yes, and so it's like we have this world where we are just told on a daily basis we are not good enough with social media. I don't look like an Instagram model. I don't have this many followers. I'm not in a relationship. I don't have all these things, right? And it's just our feed every morning. We're just not good enough, not good enough, not good enough. And the thing is, growing up, like in high school, I didn't believe in myself until maybe junior year. And it wasn't that I didn't believe in myself. It was that I wasn't willing to push past my comfort zones. Right. And then finally I did that. And I started I qualified for all AP courses. And then I started taking college units. And so I went into college with 27 units. So I went into college at 17, graduated like 1 month after I turned 21. That's awesome. Was super early and everything. But the thing is that when I went into college, I didn't believe in myself. I'm very good at math. My business statistics course had a 70% fail rate, and I was tutoring people in it.
Wow.
And I look back and I'm like, man, I wish I would have had the confidence to go into engineering.
Right.
But I didn't.
You never believed that you could.
I never believed that I could do that. I never believed that I could be, honestly, whatever it is that I wanted to. But only through going through this process of entrepreneurship do I realize, holy crap, I could do whatever I want. Yeah. Because I will put the hard work, because the secret ingredient is hard work, right? Oh, yeah. Like we were talking about, people were like, hey, they come up to you, hey, I want to open up my own digital marketing agency. What do you think I should do?
Every day.
And it's like, one, I'm not going to, I don't know. I do that, so maybe don't ask me that question. But two, you know what it is? It's blood, sweat, and tears. Yeah. And if you're not willing to give it that, then good luck.
Some people do. They take like a course, and like 6 weeks later, they're like, oh, I landed this client. And you know what? It's funny because I'm in a group, so like Facebook ad groups, whatever, and people post there every day. They're like, oh, I landed this client. Could you guys tell me how to market for them? I'm like, how the hell did you? Yeah. I'm like, great, you're good at selling, but like maybe work as a sales agent for someone else who can actually fulfill that, because I was like, you're giving us a bad rep. Like, if I just went up to some company and said like, oh, I can do this for you, and then I can never actually do that, and I have to like ask everybody else how to do that, it's like...
Yeah, but I feel the same way. Like, these people will go out and start posting about like mental performance, and it's like, oh yeah, that's cool. Like, I didn't go get a master's degree, spend $40,000 in 2 years, and but these people are getting more clients than me because they're just pushing bullshit. Yeah, and it's like, I'm not willing to do that.
No, yeah. And I think it's longevity of business. I know we talked about this, like, especially with Nova 3 Labs, even, that it's all like trust. Like, Nova 3 Labs is like a very trustworthy, honest, science-backed, here's the studies of the ingredients we used. And it's like, they won't say, like, that's the brand, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, that will outlive some of those brands that are like cheap, quick, like illegal, like, let's do this, right? And it's like, but you have to wait. I
have to have so much patience. Yeah.
So much
so
patience.
like, we've pushed integrity from day one. Wanted to use the words weight loss, muscle gain. Mike and I have been so like transparent on that. But there's days when I wake up and I'm like, I'm behind the game because I'm not lying to everyone. And I have these internal struggles where I'm like, I'm doing what's right, but I'm not doing what's right financially, because financially I can make a shit ton more money if I said this will make you lose weight.
Yeah.
But I'm not willing to do that. But the thing is that the consumers that I'm working with don't care, right? Like, they're not going to go and look at a company's integrity, right? Right. Maybe this small niche of CrossFit athletes. But when I start navigating into normal everyday life, if they're not hearing 5 steps, if they're not hearing 6-pack abs, if they're not hearing weight loss, I'm not gaining their attention.
Right.
So it's like, I'm in this world where I want to grow, and I want to grow hard, and I want to grow fast.
Yeah.
But I'm not willing to be full of bullshit.
Right.
It's a very gray area of like, I don't know if that's going to be successful.
I feel the same. Like, sometimes I've had clients who've left because I didn't do what they wanted, but I did what was best for their business, if that makes sense. And I'm like, I'm tied to the business, and I know, like, you hired me, and it's like, if I did everything that they wanted, they would have kept me on, but they wouldn't have grown their business. And it's like, but, like, can we post this? Can we do this? And I was like, but that's just not your brand. That's not
off brand. It doesn't make any sense with what we're doing.
But because it's their ego. So now, like, that's been a big thing with my business, actually, that I've been trying to, like, promote and create awareness with business owners, that it's like, you can't let ego get in the way of your business. Like, you have to put your business and brand first, and you can't put your ego first. So it's like, I'm the business owner, I know everything. It's like, no, the market tells you. Right? Like the owner, like, if I put out a really great piece of content that I'm like, oh, I put so much work into this graphic, it looks good. If the market's like, no, it looks shit, and every time I post it, they don't react, no one buys, no one likes it, our engagement goes down, it's like, okay, like, I thought it was great, but it's not, and the market is going to tell me, and I can't let my ego be like, no, this is great, everyone needs to. It's like, dude, those are the end users. Like, if they don't like it, they don't like it. That's them, and I have to cater to them. But I can't cater necessarily, like, the business owner. And so I think a lot of people let ego get in the way of their business, especially when it comes to that. And it's like, if you want to be in it for the long term, you can't sacrifice that. And I know it's like, I could have, made more money or done this if I just was like, oh, whatever you tell me to do, I'll do. But it's like, I'm not in it to cater to the business owner's ego. I'm in it to be like, hey, like, this is how we actually grow your business if that's what you want to do.
When I make any hard decision, or I should say when I make any financial decision, I ask myself, is this a want or a need?
Right.
And is this for my ego, or is this for the business? Right. And I think it's only because I learned the hard way with someone that I was in business with before that would do anything and everything for ego. And I watched that happen, and I remember thinking, I don't really agree with what's going on. But when I brought it up, I just got like serious hostility. And so I kind of learned, I'm like, well, I don't really want to be that. That's not what I want to do.
Right.
And so I've always asked myself from day one, but that question, led Mike and I to be such good business partners, because he trusts that whatever I'm going to do is the best interest of the company.
Yeah. It's not just your best interest. It's the best interest of the company.
Yep.
That's exactly. And that can be hard for solopreneurs too, because it's like, I am the company. So what is the best? But it's at the same time, it's like, a long time ago, I could have done things that could have made a lot more money, but it's like, no, like, I'm in this for the long-term game and personal growth and, like, learning and, like, being a good person. And, like, I believe in karma, and it's like...
My biggest suggestion with being a how do you say it? Solopreneur?
Solopreneur,
Solopreneur. Would be to...
I thought you were going to say, like, soul searcher.
No.
Soul searcher, solopreneur.
Would be to have a business bank account and don't have them be the same. And pay yourself as if you are a salaried employee. Because you cannot sit here, like, people are like, wow, you must be rich. And I'm all,
no.
What? No. Like, what do you mean? Like, what the company makes and what I make are two different things, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so it's like...
especially as a growing company. If you want to let it go and then just let it, like, slowly decline, you just take all the money out of it now. But it's like...
oh, my God, never.
You want to grow it. Like,
never have I taken even a distribution percentage. Like,
yeah.
So, anyways, you have to disengage from that, because it is not your money, right? This money, the business owns the money, right? You want the business to be profitable, you invest it back in the business, right? So you sit there and your money, your company makes $10,000 a month and you're taking $9,000 as a salary. That's stupid.
Yeah, what are you like? Yeah, you're not going to grow
What are
the
you
business.
investing?
If you want to ever make that company $1 million a month, that's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
If you want to like that company just like a little passive income source, and then you move on to some other things, then whatever, do you? But
like, do you? Yeah.
But and then again, like that's for some people, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if people want to build out like a brand and a business that helps more people, and that's like their why, and that's their thing, then you can't do that with that business. You know? Like you could have like a little real estate business and buy and sell houses or whatever on the side, like totally do that with that, whatever. But yeah, you can't do that with your what's your blood, sweat, and tears.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's so interesting. And going back, I had a thought when you were talking about like self-confident, and it's so interesting that I feel like we're like in similar paths, and we were talking about how like we were very like similar, but I think we came from, it's interesting, we came from like a lot very different
opposite
paths,
backgrounds,
and like because I believed so you had to build your self-confidence with the growth mindset, and I've always been so interested in like, is it a nature or nurture thing, like, and that kind of thing, because I was always told like I could do whatever I wanted, and my parents, even if they doubted me, they only doubted me to like instill that belief more, if that makes sense. They'd be like, you can't do it. Like if I was learning any sport, they'd be like, you can't do it, we're going home if you don't do it like after this, and I'd be like, fuck, I'm gonna do it right now. You know, but it's like I believe that, like, literally growing up, like, I almost over-believed. I was like, if I want to be a doctor, yeah, sure, why not? Like, I could, but I just don't want to. And I'm like, if I want to be, why not? But I don't want to. And it's like, but at the same time, like, there's, like, that middle ground where it's, like, obviously, like, I know that I have weaknesses where I need help. Like, I know, like, I'm not very good at, like, accounting, and I need to, like, have an accountant. Or there's different pieces of the puzzle. But at the same time, like, it's, like, that confidence to be, like, if I work hard, like, whatever I work hard at, I could achieve. And I think that's, like, a growth mindset thing. And it's, like, some people either they come up with a growth mindset or they have to learn it. And I think people who have to learn it, like, it's almost better, if that makes sense. I don't know, not better. Like, there's plus and minuses. But.
Like, I hear your stories and I talk to people and I see how much love they were raised with.
Right.
And it's kind of crazy because it's like, well, I wasn't raised with that.
Yeah.
So, like, my mom left when I was 2. My dad worked a lot. Like, he wasn't really around. I just dealt with a lot of uncertainty. When I was like 13, my sister got into drugs, like heavy drugs. So I kind of ran the household at a young age.
Right.
My dad remarried, but she was like an alcoholic. And so I was raised with like abandonment essentially, and like no one ever being there and me being by myself.
Right.
And me having to be the parent in a situation where I was 11, 12, 13 years old, like had to take care of the house, had to cook my own food. I was doing my own laundry at 5 years old. I was like figuring out my own rides to school and stuff, right? And to practices and things. So from a very early age, it was just that I was raised, look, you innately trust your parents. So when I went to go trust people, they weren't there for me, right? And so what that taught me in life early on, before I learned to change that, was that you can only trust yourself, right? So be alone because that's safe, right? Like, I was raised in chaos. So when I am around certainty, stability, safety, that does not feel normal to me. My gut is like, get out, abort. And me having to fight that is unnatural, right? But only now, literally this year, 28 years old, is when I was like, oh, you know what? Or going through grad school too, I was like, I realized how much my childhood affected me. How much I had to learn what self-confidence meant.
Right.
And I had to learn how to build it up myself. And I had to be my own role model at a very young age.
Right.
And that's kind of like, I talk to a lot of clients about their why and how their why has to be bigger than themselves. And